You are valued, and you are needed.
You will be Emperor.
I think you're about to go where everyone has gone before.
The year is 2023. The name of the podcast, Babylon 5, for the first time.
Welcome to Babylon 5 for the first time, not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I am the one who was.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I am the one who will be.
And we're watching Babylon 5 for the first time for you, the one who is.
And we are two veteran Star Trek podcasters watching Babylon 5 for the first time. And in doing so, we are searching for those Star Trek-like messages that are being told in a uniquely Babylon 5 way.
And while this is not a podcast about Star Trek, those references are very likely to make their way into our conversations. So to keep us honest, we play the rule of 3 that limits each of us to just 3 and no more references to Star Trek per episode.
That's it. 3. 1, 2, 3. No substitutions, exchanges, or refund.
Hey, Brent.
Hey, Jeff.
We have a 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
It's from Apple Podcasts, and Dematique says, Babylon 5 out of 5. I've been listening weekly since Babylon Squared, and your predictions are regularly a delight. The perspectives you each share also expand my own conceptions of episodes outside of my own lived experience. The anticipation of seeing how you gents react is a weekly delight. There are so many things that I know we all want to discuss with you guys, but we must keep the sanctity of spoilers.
Yes.
G'Kar is absolutely my favorite character, and as of the Long Twilight struggle, his strength of character really shows. Your comments about Veer in Comes the Inquisitor further demonstrates B5's ability to develop characters in very surprising ways, and that's all I can say about that. To quote an infamous Centauri, keep it up.
Well, the Matique, thank you for that. And yes, absolutely, no spoilers. Let's maintain. It is a way of life, Jeff.
It is. No spoilers for life.
We have made it this far. We can get the rest of the way spoiler free for the most part. So,
well, we'll find out today. And before we find out, we have another 5-star review.
Oh, yes.
Also from Apple Podcasts, Tired Nate says, logic plus heart plus humor equals B5 for the first time. Jeff and Brent bring their vast knowledge of the genre and explore the TV series Babylon 5 for the first time. This is a spoiler-free podcast and is inviting to both new B5 viewers as well as those who've watched the series 65 times.
Hey!
Using their logic, humor, and heart, they break down each episode. Agree or disagree with them, they will bring their honest opinions to the table. Enjoy.
Yes, that is a promise and a guarantee. We will give you our honest opinions, thoughts, reactions as we view this through the first time, not with the lens of somebody who's seen the whole thing, because we haven't.
65 times.
Exactly. Shout out Clip 65.
Well done, Tired Nate. Well done.
You know, Jeff, along with all these reviews that we get and along with our rule of 3, there is another game that we like to play here at the show where we try to guess what next week's episode is going to be about based on title alone. Well, we don't do that part here. That comes at the end of the show. But what happens right here is where we look back at last week's episode to see what we thought this week's episode was going to be about and see how close we were. So, Jeff, thinking back to last week, do you remember what you said Atonement was going to be and how close were you?
Well, we're going to get more about Garibaldi's programming. I'm going to keep predicting that until it happens. Didn't happen in this one. No. And then I thought that Delenn was going to get abducted by Earth Force, and we had kind of riffed on that to where it might have been like civilians like taking up the cause. But my gist was that she was going to get pulled into the fire to atone for influencing Sheridan in Babylon 5. She was brought up for kind of her relationship with Sheridan, but it really wasn't what I had in mind. What did you guess?
Well, I said that this was going to be about Marcus revisiting some of his demons from the past. And this is going to be Marcus sort of exploring his time before becoming a ranger, maybe even shortly after becoming a Ranger. And while what we got was Marcus going back to Mars for a very, very, very thinned out B plot. Yeah, we didn't get any of that. So, Jeff, with that, as we're thinking about what this episode was about, why don't you, for the folks who are playing along at home who maybe haven't seen this episode in a while, or maybe they're just listening to us without ever actually having seen the show, which thanks for listening and go watch the show. Jeff, will you tell the folks out there what Atonement really was about?
Well, things are starting to settle into a routine on Babylon 5. Zach is getting fitted for his command staff uniform, and Ivanova is partying with her Drazi buddies from 2 seasons ago. Jakar gets his new eye, and everything seems to be going great, except that it's really not all that great. Earth is hitting Babylon 5 hard with propaganda, and it's getting rough. Sheridan decides to mobilize forces ahead of time and sends the dynamic duo of Dr. Franklin and Marcus off to Mars to rally their allies. Delenn is in a rough one, too. She's been called back to Minbar by her clan to face the music. You see, in their culture, hooking up with other races is strictly forbidden, and she's been speeding right along on that path. In fact, before heading to the planet, she and Sheridan share their 3rd night of her awkwardly staring at him while he sleeps. Lanier, despite Delenn trying to completely ghost him, joins Delenn on her journey. To determine if Delenn can keep dating John or not, her clan makes her have an orb experience. They call it the dreaming. After she goes through this, they're going to decide her relationship future. Sounds like a reality show. When asked if she'll comply with their decision, she sits back, takes a sip of some cloudy white liquid, and says, "The dude abides." In the dreaming, she's taken back to her time as an acolyte, where she was mentored by Dukat. We see her rise to the Grey Council, and then the attack from the humans, which killed Dukat and launched the Earth-Minbari War. Delenn blames herself for the war as she was the deciding vote to attack. A dead Dukat in her arms, she channels her inner John Kreese and screams, "There is no mercy in this dojo!" Not understanding why the dreaming took her to these moments, she brings Lanier and the clan dude that got the speaking part in this episode back in with her. This time she pays closer attention, and here's Dukat's last words to her. "You are a child of Valen." Delenn is a descendant of Jeffrey Sinclair's, and with some records that Lanier pried from the unconscious hands of some very helpful guards, shows that the Minbari haven't been truly pure for 1,000 years. Disgusted, but beaten, Clan Dude and the rest of the clan are ultimately cool with her hooking up with Sheridan. They dust off some ancient tradition, basically saying that she's a gift from the victorious Minbari to the defeated humans, and all is well for Sherilyn, or Delaridin, or I don't know. Hey, Brent, what were your first thoughts and reactions to Atonement?
I'm sorry, I've got to give you a first thought and reaction to your description. Yeah. Sheridan?
Delaridin? They got to have a couple names.
You just gave them a ship name that I've never needed to hear in my life, for the record. By the way, thank you for taking every single one of my notes and cramming them into your recap there. Every reference, you nailed them all. Well done.
They were kind of on a platter.
They really were.
Just served
particularly up. The dude abides one. That was just Oh my gosh, what in the world? Okay, opening thoughts. I'm beginning to realize something about this show, Jeff.
Okay.
Not this show, just kind of where we are in the life of this show. After the first 6 episodes of this season, and those first 6 episodes being this hyper serialized, laser focused, right to the end of the Vorlon Shadow War, it was super tight. In my head, and we've discussed this a little bit on the show since then, I think that I was just hey, this is the way we're telling stories now in season 4. And it's going to be these super hyper serialized arcs. And that if that 6 episodes was a chunk, then we were going to get another 6 or 7 episode arc, or maybe this whole last 15 episodes of the season, I think is really what I was thinking. This is going to be that same kind of super focused, super tight, bam, 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 bam. But I don't think that's the case. Mm-mm. I think we are very much back to our normal Babylon 5, non-hyper, regular, serialized type of storytelling. here with the rest of season 4. In that, yes, it is all serialized, right? But each episode is really kind of its own thing, and it's connected in part of the overall story. Some episodes are going to be world building. Some episodes are character studies. Some episodes do further the bigger plot along. Some focus on a side thing, different things like that. That being said, taking this episode, because that's how I'm trying to think of this episode now, is just on its own merit and saying, how did this episode go? And how does it also fit into the bigger context of the show? I think you've got to look at it both. This was a fantastic episode to me. This episode had a beginning, middle, and end. At the same time, it was clearly connected to the overall story of Babylon 5. But what I really loved most was it took a character and it gave that character a complete evolution that was not a complete betrayal of their character up to this point. I'm looking at you, Dr. Bashir, who suddenly in season 5 became a genetically altered supermind guy. Like this Delenn, she was different coming out of this show than what she was going into this episode. And they didn't gumbify her. They didn't change her at the beginning so that they could put her into something at the end. Like, she came into this episode being who she truly was. I kind of want to stop there because that, I think, is the bulk of where I really want to talk about, is what happened with Delenn. If you want me to go ahead and talk about it now, Jeff, that's fine. If you want me to save it, I'll save it. But if you want me to stop now and let you talk, I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what you said.
No, this
we can
is the
dive
Brent
in.
Show. Shut up.
Right. This is what I have to say about this thing. Just take you off the screen for a minute.
The entire show right now.
In minute 43, this is what my thoughts were on what had happened before. No, so I loved exactly that, the integrity of Delenn's story. And I liked how she acknowledged it so much. Like, there was this whole underwriting piece that when Lanier was there, she's just like, this is going to destroy what you think of me. Like, I did a horrible thing. And it's really dealing with that deep thing so many of us have, that regret, of I made a choice in my life that made things happen. For her, it was literally galaxy altering, the choice that she made. But for a lot of us, we make these little tiny decisions that might change our lives in a little small way. But those are the things that keep us awake at night, right? Thinking back like, oh my God, if I would have said this, or if I would have done this, or if I would have paused for a second. Imagine like laying this on top of the Delenn that we've seen now for 3.25 seasons, and understanding that she's been living with this the whole time, I think just adds so much depth to who she is. I think it's great. Also, I kind of love Dukat.
Yeah.
Like, a lot.
Yeah.
I have some thoughts as we talk about just some of the directing pieces. I'm not going to put it on the actor, but some directing things. But as a character and the way he carried himself, like, I want that guy as a mentor. Like, I want that guy working with me. He was great.
Well, I mean, Dukat is the first time that a Minbari ever felt real to me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lump in Delenn and Lanier with all of that. Like, the Minbari have never felt real. They've always felt very made up, alien, almost a homogenized society. And here's Dukat sticking out like a sore thumb. He was cool. He was confident. He was his own man. He was wise. Jeff, I've got one of our famous leadership questions that I want to ask you about some stuff that Dukat did. You're right. He made you want him to be your leader, kind of like Rabbi Koslov. Like, yeah. I'm not Jewish, but I kind of want him as a rabbi. Like, I want him in my life. Like, and I still do. Like, yeah, I want to be one of Dukat's people. Like, I'm for that. Why they sit back and say he was the best of us, then be more like him.
Yeah, be like Dukat. I think one of the faults of Babylon 5 that we've talked about, and this isn't unique to Babylon 5, but it's just become really apparent. But whenever characters from the Minbari Federation, from Earth Force, from the Centauri Republic show up, there are these archetypes that are just like, I think about Ben Zane, back in Eyes in the first season, where it's just like, that's not a real person at all. Like, right. It's just such a cookie cutter. I loved when, I think it was in Matters of Honor, when Ndawe came on, the investigator, and he was just doing his job. It's like, oh my God, an Earth Force guy who's just like not aggressive sledgehammer swinger. This is great. I love this. But all the Minbari we have, like, you're right, homogenized, but maybe more tribogenized. Because you got your workers, your religious, your warriors.
That's where you're going with that. Yeah.
But they're all different versions of the exact same thing until Dukat. And it was like, I think everything about him, from his wisdom, from the fact that he like understood the game in a way where he's like, yeah, I could totally go make contact with Earth, but it would make all this stuff happen, and we have to go through this process. So I'm going to let us make our mistakes so we can learn from them.
So, I'm sorry, while you're there.
Yeah,
that is actually exactly what I wanted to ask you about. And since you're talking about it, let's go here. What are your thoughts on Dukat as a leader saying, I could override them, but I'm not going to. I'm going to allow stuff to happen.
100% the right thing to do. 100%. It would be different if, like, these were some, like, junior associates in some company, or they were like the city council for a small thing. But these are the leaders of the Minbari race. I've talked a lot when I have been critical of Delenn in the past. I think about Comes the Inquisitor, where I was very critical about her. But my thing is, like, it's not this just that she's some random Minbari person. She's one of the 9.
Mm-hmm.
The 9 people over this massive thing. I tend to hold them to a higher standard. So for Dukat being the leader of those 9, and for him to see that they're making a bad choice and heading down a bad path, he did everything right. He told them, hey, this isn't a good idea. I think we should do things this way. So whatever, old man, we're not going to listen to you. Cool. Hey, here's Delenn, just an acolyte who's been an acolyte for 10 years. It's a long time to be an acolyte, right? But I want to bring her in completely unprepared and ask her this question. Oh, look, she said the same thing. And also look at her spirit of curiosity that none of you have. I'm going to shove your face in everything you're about to do wrong. Yep, we're still going to do it. Okay, you do it. And you will either learn from this or will be worse for it. But that's because, one, organizationally, you have to learn and grow from it. But secondly, you got to make your own choice. If he had come in and shut them down and said, we're going to do this, he would have immediately created this resistance cell, who then would have been working against him. No, Dukat's strategy across the board in this was damaging long term, but was brilliant from a leadership standpoint.
What about the fact that he refused to do what the rest of the Grey Council does? Like, okay, here's this Grey Council. These people are the folks in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when they come together, they feel the need to stand in a dark room and 9 pools of light, wearing these shrouds covering their faces and not actually talking to each other. Now, I get it. From a production standpoint, you save money on the makeup. You don't have to pay them because they're not talking. Like, I get all of that. The practicality of that 9 being a ruling body does not work versus what we're actually seeing on screen.
So I learned a thing back a long time ago, one of my early legislative sessions that I worked, and there's the public spectacle of politics, and then there's the reality of politics.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bill that I had written and was working through the process, and my work was to go meet with the members of the committee one-on-one, talk about what I was trying to do, the fiscal impacts, the policy impacts, blah, 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 and then answer all their questions. And through that, we would determine what was going to happen in the public hearing. So we went, and there was actual questions and back and forth that occurred. It wasn't all like a show, but the work had already happened behind closed doors. And then we came and basically demonstrated a more polished version of the work and added some public debate. The public was available to, provide testimony or hearings for stuff to, influence things or whatever.
But everything had already been done.
Everything had pretty much already been done. And that's how I feel that the Grey Council works. And Dukat even spoke to that. Go meditate, go talk, go do your things, and then come back and we'll make a decision. Because the real work of a council or a committee doesn't happen in that chamber. That's where they vote. That's where they do public
chamber.
Statements.
Like if that was a public chamber where people were watching, I would kind of see it. This is like them just meeting.
Stand by. We'll be right back. Are you ready to take your Babylon 5 for the first time experience to the next level? With our exclusive Patreon, you'll get access to all kinds of cool stuff that you can only find there. our recording notes, unedited reaction videos, an exclusive Discord community. And you can even be listed as a producer of the show. Plus, we even offer exclusive meet and greets and hangouts. You won't find this kind of experience anywhere else. Get all these amazing benefits, plus the opportunity to interact with other fans from around the world. It's being part of a huge community where everyone shares the same appreciation for Babylon 5. Subscribe at patreon.com/Babylon5First. That's the number 5 and the word first to get access to these incredible benefits. That's patreon.com/Babylon5First. We can't wait to see you there. Well, I don't think the Minbari are so worried about public transparency in their governing practices.
Yeah.
But I think that the mechanics of it are go worker caste, go warrior caste, go religious caste, have your caucus essentially and go talk, and then come forward. Instead of having 9 voices, we'll have 3 voices and 9 votes. There's still 9 votes. We saw that with the attack,
right?
That occurred. We'll get there, but I'm curious if you have any guesses on who voted what as far as the castes go. But yeah, so like still 9 voices, 9 votes, but really 3 voices, and that's just, frankly, it's a more efficient way of doing the debate and the decision making. And then you've got Ducat in the middle, who has to kind of like facilitate everything and keep them on point. And like in government terms, he's the guy who drafts the agenda, you know, right. And these are the things that we are going to talk about, things we're not. I'm going to adjourn and send you back. You know, yeah, that's a great thought. Go talk about it more.
He's the Speaker of the House, right?
Basically, yeah.
Okay, so with that, Jeff, thank you for that response. Let me ask you, do you want to keep talking about the whole dreaming and the whole thing with Delenn, or do we want to cover the other stuff real quick and then jump back in?
Let's cover the other stuff real quick and dive in.
Okay, so the black uniform thing. I don't think I realized until this episode that only the command staff is wearing those black uniforms as a gift from Delenn. Like that's why Zach has been in this like green Ninja Turtle looking outfit, honestly. But no, now he gets one of the black ones.
Yeah, it's cool.
And yeah, but I guess it's true. We've only really seen Sheridan, Ivanova, Garibaldi, and Franklin.
Yeah.
Wearing,
in fact,
right?
What was dude's name? Lieutenant Corwin, is that right? He was the guy in the command control center that they were going to like talk about bringing. Like I haven't seen him at all. I don't think he's even been on the show, let alone in one of the cool new uniforms. I wonder if something happened to him.
I don't know. Maybe he's doing another show right now.
Right. But no, I love the scene for so many reasons.
It was funny.
Just funny.
It was just funny.
But I thought it was cool too, because if you remember back in Voices of Authority, when the episode with Chicky, Zach was complaining to Garibaldi about how these security uniforms they're so baggy. Like I look ridiculous. How am I going to get a date in one of these things? Now he's getting tailored. He's looking nice, and Lanier picks up on. He's like, because he's complaining about his outfit again, but Lanier picks up like, there's something more to this. And I thought that was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, yeah, Garibaldi's going to be back. If I get this uniform, it means he's not coming back.
Right. He gets poked intentionally by the Minbari, who has this big ass needle. Sorry. He has this big old needle. And like, you see the person's arm like reel back and just jab him. And he's like, ow. And then Lanier is like, good job. And next time use a bigger needle. To which I was sitting there thinking, like, actually, a bigger needle would hurt less. Get a finer needle. Get one that's more pokey, because a big needle, blunts the force a little bit.
Or maybe he was just trying to actually like cause harm. He's like, get a bigger needle so we can send this guy to med lab for a while
and suck out fluid from his spine when you do it.
Yeah,
That's the kind of needle we're going for here. All right, here's a question then, Jeff. How permanent is this whole change with Garibaldi and Zach? Zach's getting a uniform. Now we know in production world, whatever could happen, but like, is Garibaldi gone?
That's my guess.
Like, is he coming back? Because they were seeding that. Like, I don't want to do this until the chief comes back, or when they're like, look, he's not coming back.
I think we're going to get a little mini arc with Zach where he starts like accepting the mantle of being the chief, the head of security. But I think my guess is that Garibaldi's done. Like, his business is going to take off. He's going to do well. We still have questions about, like, is it going to be on Babylon 5? Is he going to move? There's still like stuff to go into, a lot more story. I don't think Jerry Doyle is leaving the series. I think Michael Garibaldi is leaving the staff of Babylon 5.
Here's what I can say right now with all certainty. I cannot say that I have rightly seen a season 5 DVD cover to know if Jerry Doyle is in season 5 or not. But this feels like they're writing him off the show. Slowly,
yeah,
but it's what it feels like.
But think about all the other people they've written off the show. Veer, right, back when he got sent to Minbari, stuff like that, or to Minbar, and those things. I feel like they don't really write people off the show, really.
What's the trapdoor thing that we've heard about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got a trapdoor.
But I don't think it's a trapdoor. I think this is part of the story. I think this is transitioning Garibaldi out of his work in Earth Force and being his own guy.
And somehow it's got to play in the overall takedown of President Clark and the scourging of Earth. Like,
or maybe he's just over on the side of all that.
Is he going to be a bad guy? Like, so we asked about Talia. Like, when Talia turned, we wanted to see evil Talia. I have often said that I think, given the time frame and where things were, they couldn't have done it any other way. But if Star Trek TNG was being made now and we got to Best of Both Worlds and Jean-Luc Picard gets turned into a Borg, he would not get de-Borgified the very next episode. He would stay a Borg. Riker would have gotten promoted and Riker's the new captain. And Picard turns into the villain of the show. And that, at least for a season. And they're going to carry this out for a season or two. And then when Picard comes back, he's going to be an admiral, or he's going to be a civilian, but he'll still be around, or something like that. Like, that's how that would work today. And that's actually, that would be really neat.
That'd be a cool season.
And it would make a whole lot more sense of why Jean-Luc today still freaks out about the whole Borg thing. Like, dude, you were there for a week. Like, come on, man. You know.
I think so. And this is really about my thoughts on Babylon 5, the series as a whole, and where it's moving. I think that, like, what we're doing now is we're looking at what happens after a world war, right? You know, in this case, a galaxy war, because so many movies, so many TV shows have that big war. And then it's like, okay, we won. Hooray. This is saying, no, there's fallout from that. What are you thinking? I can see it on your face.
I'm thinking if I want to go ahead and use my third reference right here. I mean, that's what we got with Star Trek. There was the big Dominion War. And then the next thing we knew that happened, Voyager came home. And until New Trek, and even still right now, like, what happened between Voyager showing back up out of the transwarp conduit and Prodigy or Lower Decks, right? We know somewhere the Romulan star exploded, and then we get Picard and whatever the heck's going on with Picard. But we don't know, because like, that's what happened. For so long, it was just Dominion War ended, and now Voyager's back home. Like, that's all we got.
I think Babylon 5 is going that extra step of saying, now what happens? And so I think Garibaldi's role in the story of this now is going to be, there's still all this mess going on with Earth. There's going to be stuff amongst the League worlds as they're, you know, kind of picking up pieces. So there's going to be the still conflicts that are going on.
Right.
But I think Garibaldi is going to be the through line once we get through what his Sheridan stuff is, what his programming is, all that. I think he's going to be the through line of, like, this is what a dude living life is doing in the universe now post-war. Like, he's going to become our everyman.
I really want him to turn into a bad guy, though, Jeff.
So I am
so good if he was a bad guy for the rest of the series.
I'm banking that he will be a bad guy in this season, but unlike Talia, where that personality killed it. In fact, oh my God. In fact, what I almost think is going to happen is this is where Bester finally, in the eyes of the people on Babylon 5, gets redeemed to some level where he's like, no, I can actually encapsulate his little thing, and I can fix him.
Oh, Bester helps to fix Garibaldi. That's an interesting storyline. I could get with that. But
Psychor messes him up. Bester comes and kind of cleans him up.
Well, because we don't need Bester to come and make his war our war anymore. And help us actually defeat the Vorlons and Shadows, because that's done.
Yeah, we didn't need his help, apparently, despite multiple episodes talking about it.
Right. But don't worry, nothing's wasted.
Everything that you see on screen turns into something.
Yes. We got it. So Ivanova comes out. Now, I got to admit, she had that green sash, and it took a second to click in my head what she was wearing. And she said, I got invited to go do something with the Drazi. I thought she was going to get killed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, oh, she's about to get jacked. Like they're coming to get her. Now I thought these things only lasted for a year, and we're and then they went on pause for like 5 years. So we're like 2 years past, whatever. But so she's wearing a green sash. And the next thing we see of her is she's getting out of the elevator with her cane from that episode I noted. And she looks like either her and that Drazi got it on in the episode or in the elevator, or they got it on in the elevator. And I don't know which one it was.
I think it might have been a little bit of both.
A little bit.
I think that we might have gotten a good, like, what I think that there was the cane and the scarf, the sash, the whole thing was a little role play that was going on, celebrating the whole thing. And I have a feeling that the Drazi approach to getting it on is a pretty darn Klingon approach. And in that elevator, we got some Worf and Jadzia going down.
Living it up when they're going down.
Right?
I love it.
It was fun. It was really cool to see Ivanova having fun.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, that's the call out to the old school Ivanova. That honestly, we've really been missing. It's the first season. I still love Ivanova though.
Still the best. She's still God. Sorry, God.
Just joking. Okay, so G'Kar. They're 100% setting up this eye to be a thing in a future episode, right?
Oh yeah.
Like
totally.
he's going to stick his eye in somebody's pocket and they're going to spy on somebody, or, you know, it's going to be like the camera that you just set somewhere and he's going to be able to see what's going on.
It's not the nanny cam. It's the Narni cam.
The Narni cam.
I love the makeup choice where they just didn't put his contact lens in.
Are his eyes actual blue?
I don't know. I guess they were. That'd be weird.
I've seen pictures of Andreas, and that guy is a brown-eyed dude if I've ever met one in my life. So it's
Would that be weird though? Hey, don't put in your red contacts. Put in this blue one. Hey, why can't I just have my regular eye?
Well, right. Well, because you have to juxtapose red and blue. But I mean, you could just slap a blue contact on top of your eye. That's not a big problem. You slap a full red, cover up my entire eyeball that I can barely see out of, and it hurts. I did like Franklin though, sitting there like, okay, now listen, you can take this thing out, but you got to make sure you clean it. Make sure you charge it. You got to put it on the charger.
It's a very timely statement.
Does it plug in or is it a wireless charger?
Is it lightning port? Are we still going to get to use lightning ports in the future? Franklin, by the way, awesome doctor. Awesome doctoring in this scene.
Yeah. And you know why? Because he didn't have that many lines.
Exactly.
And he wasn't being creepy, and he wasn't being, I have already made up my mind about the right and wrong. And because you know what it is? There was nothing moral about this.
Right. It's just a procedure.
Pure medicine.
Do this. Be hygienic about it. Also, know you're going to have these issues. There you go.
So I guess the only other thing outside of the whole Delenn deal then is, speaking of Franklin, he and Marcus are getting sent away to Mars to make contact with the resistance on Mars. And we'll catch up with that in an episode or two.
In that scene, there was a cool moment after like Sheridan kind of gave him their marching orders or whatever. And Franklin stops by. He's like, hey, dude, heard about your dad. While I'm over there, do you want me to pick anything? I thought that was a really cool, selfless move for Franklin to step up. And I also understood Sheridan being like, no, like, yes, I care.
Jeff, pause. Because this was my other ask Jeff about this leadership moment.
Okay.
Please discuss this moment from a leadership standpoint.
So on both sides, I'll do it from Franklin's side. It was great leadership because he understood he had an opportunity that was going to make a personal difference to somebody on his team. You know, like, I know this is a thing causing you stress. I'm going to be in the neighborhood. I can check on this for you. That's a cool thing. You don't have to be a manager or anything like that. That's just good peopling to do. But for Sheridan to tell him no, like, don't, you got other stuff to do, was the right move. But it's complicated, right? Because there's also value in saying, hey, yeah, if you could do that, that adds some value and validates Franklin offering that. So there's a piece of, you know, when someone offers you something, yeah, hey, if you could, blah, 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 that's awesome. But also I think that Sheridan understood that, hey, this is the thing that's just going to help me personally, has no impact on the greater picture of things. And it puts you, Dr. Franklin, one of my key assets, going behind the lines, going undercover to figure some stuff out, puts you at wild amounts of risk. So as much as I would like to know how my dad is doing, it's not worth the risk. I think it was fantastic leadership. A big part of leadership is personal sacrifice. giving things up and understanding that there are things bigger than you at stake. And in that moment, Sheridan understood that and demonstrated it.
Well, and he also like, yeah. And by the way, if you go poking around, it's actually going to damage what you're trying to do out there anyway. And Sheridans are survivors in this. He did say they included that in the broadcast. I felt like when we saw that episode that might have been the thing that the news reporter was like, hey, I'm actually not being a big jerk. Here is me
giving you news.
a little information that you could use, Sheridan. But Sheridan was like, no. They put that in to try to draw us out.
Yeah.
They try like, and I'm like, well, okay, then I guess that just makes it bad then.
Yeah. Makes Dan Randall a jerk.
Yeah. He's just a jerk. If that's the truth, maybe Sheridan has a misread on the whole deal. I don't know.
Yeah. Understandably so.
Sure.
Like, how do you look at that as John Sheridan and go, oh, how nice for him to subtly slip me a message? No, he's going to read that and be like, they're actively threatening me on the air right now.
Right.
I do want to give one shout out on some of the production that happened here. So there was this transition scene where the sun was going down behind the planet and like night fell onto Babylon 5. That was freaking gorgeous. That was a beautiful scene.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Now I want to go back and rewatch it. I must have been taking a note or something at that moment. Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's so good. But then I think it was around that transition scene that or shortly after where we get Marcus and Franklin flying off.
There you go.
Being awkward with each other.
Well, and then the end of the whole thing with them on the ship, like going off, and he's just pushing the button, making it go out and in and all that. So
he sings the Major General song from the Pirates of Penzance.
Yes.
Which, if you want to annoy somebody, it's a pretty good one to sing.
That is your end of the episode assignment. You must sing that.
Oh my God.
As we go out,
I'll stick around and we'll see if that happens or not. But hey, you know what else is cool about this? This is for some of my Mass Effect people out there. Morden in Mass Effect 2, if you get the right dialogue tree going, he sings that song.
There's a Morden in Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, he's a good guy, though. He's actually one of the best guys. He's amazing.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, he's super cool. But yeah, here's a whole thing. If you get everything right, he sings a version of a Solarian. Instead of being a Major General, he's a Solarian something. That's the race that Morden is. And I now fully believe that's an homage to Babylon 5 now. So pretty cool.
All right, so shall we talk about Delenn and her whole deal?
Let's do it.
All right, so
let's start with Delenn in a black dress.
Oh,
inviting Sheridan to stay the night.
Okay, so she comes out and I'm like, it's like Sheridan's looking at her with gaga eyes.
He's like a 16-year-old boy.
Like she's in like lingerie, like we're gonna stay in. And then she's like, no, we're getting ready to go out to dinner because we haven't been out to dinner in a long time. And I'm like, oh, she's actually wearing a night dress right now, like not a nightgown, but a evening
going out dress.
Yeah. Like that's not lingerie. That's she's ready to go out on the town. And then, she's going to watch him sleep.
Yeah. So many more rituals, like I thought they'd done the 3 nights. I thought that was already done.
One. And then actually, apparently they did 2. I don't know that I remember the 2. I didn't realize there was still 1 hanging out there.
Yeah. I thought we had checked that box and they were ready to rock and roll. That's why he gave her the ring and everything, but, still more to do. And apparently still, even when you're courting, you still got to go out to dinner from time to time. That's a note for anyone out there in a long or short-term relationship.
Hey, listen, if you're out there married or you're in a long-term committed relationship, honestly, do the things that you did early on. Go on dates, set it up, make it happen. Actually do that. Okay, first of all, good on Lanier for going with Delenn through this whole deal. Like, great on him.
And shame on her for not telling him. And also not way back, but a couple weeks ago in the summoning, she was talking about all these people that are important to me, bad things are happening to. And she lists everybody except Lanier. Like she's actively trying to cut him out of her life.
Well, it's because he has a crush on her and she's not trying to lead him on.
Maybe. He's sworn himself to her, though. And he doubles down on that.
He does. But she's got another dude,
who she stared at all night long.
Right. And Lanier's like, she could be watching me.
Right. I sleep well.
So Delenn really seems to think like she's not coming back at the beginning of this episode. And were you surprised at all to find out that the Minbari forbid interracial marriage or interspecies marriage?
No. I mean, I was not surprised at all. Racial purity has been a theme we've heard from the Minbari pretty much since this from Go. I think I was just more surprised that it's only now coming up.
Yeah, I was not surprised at all. And then, my God, they brought the leaders of the clan to decide her fate.
Yeah.
That looked like the whole dang clan.
There's a lot of people in there.
That was more than just the elders. That was more than the leaders. Or her clan is really flargin' big, and you got all of these leaders together in the same place at the same time to make this decision for her.
I wonder how many clans there are, right? Maybe that is all the leaders. Maybe they're huge. Maybe there's like 6.
Is this her and Lanier? Are they in the same clan? Is this Third Fane and Chidomo?
No idea.
Interesting. By the way, the leader guy already has made up his mind about how he's going to decide.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like,
Clearly.
He's like, we're going to go through this to tell you you're wrong. Well, what if, and Delenn has a great line, but she says, well, what chance do I have if you've already made up your mind? And he's like, you're going to have to come up with a really good one.
Yeah. That's up to you to figure out, right? That's on you.
We're here to tell you how you're wrong. And this is not going to go forward. But then we turn in and we find out that she was a person to go sit with Dukat during his dreaming, which we never found out why he was dreaming. Was this just something he goes and does on the regular, like just to hang out, or in the middle of something? And why did she go in there? Isn't this supposed to be like an intimate thing? Like her and Lanier, like she just, I'll go in. Sure.
I wonder if it's a thing they do, like as you're being appointed or moving through, you're like, oh, you're going to be the new whatever. Like maybe she had to go through the dreaming. Well, I don't know. When she was getting named to the Grey Council, like maybe that's Dukat, you're going to be the one to lead us all. So you got to go through the dreaming to show us that you can do that. I don't know.
We're going to send a random acolyte in here to watch you while you do it and get into all your stuff.
Which is weird too. Cause like when clan speaker dude was like, is there anyone who trusts you trust and love to accompany and protect you? Yeah. Hi, I'm Dukat. I'm big deal. I'm literally the best of you. You just got out of college.
Just send an intern.
Yeah.
Send the intern. I'll be fine.
Probably fine. Like, let's just do that.
Yeah.
Unless he already knew.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe he asked for her because he already knew about the Valen stuff, and this was his opportunity to start planting, kind of developing her and then grooming her to step into the role.
So I did rewatch this, and I don't think that that's the case, because they're sitting there talking, and he says, so what's your name? Where are you from? What's your clan? What's your house? Whatever. And she tells him, and that's when he goes, oh, you're of that family. Like you see it on his face, like, oh, you're a child of Valen. Like he knew at that moment. Okay. Like you're of that family, that means you're a child of Valen. Like he immediately knew, and he's like, that's a good family you're from. There's like, he immediately said something about her heritage there. So I think the intimation on a rewatch is he is meeting her for the first time, and he didn't pick her. This is like that's cool.
Like, oh yeah, we should do something. Did you catch? I thought it was neat. The name of her family is Mir.
Yeah, that's it. House
like Mira Furlan.
Oh, look at that! I didn't catch up on that. I wonder. I'm just guessing. I wonder if that's on purpose.
Right, a little thing, maybe. I don't know.
Later on, he tells her this great line, like, "There's nothing to fear in here except for what you bring in yourself." And Dukat. I mean, all right. So talk about Dukat. Dukat was the coolest dude we've ever seen on this show.
Totally.
Right. Like he was.
Well, he like, and she, we see where she learned how to be who she's become, right? When he brings her on.
I'm going to debate that. Keep going.
Well, as I said, like little things in terms of like, he's looking at, hey, I want you to be my aide or whatever. And then he's like, I cannot have an aide that will not look up. They'll be forever walking into things. And that's the exact same thing she said to Lanier when he came on board. It was great. I think he did a very good job in the time he had to mentor and groom her. And I think that a lot of it stuck with her. Definitely not all of it.
The role was cast so well.
Yeah.
I don't even know who the name of the actor is or what else he has done. I tried looking it up. It's not the guy I thought it was, but he was Dukat.
Yeah.
100%.
He was like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
He had that voice that was incredible. Now, what I was going to mention, though, on the directing, there was quite a few times where just his body positioning and kind of how he put himself in relation to Delenn was really creepy.
Would it have been creepy for the late 90s, though? Is it only creepy because you're looking at it through today's eyes?
I don't know. It just felt like, especially the time when he came by, he's like, oh, I was just heading to my quarters to sleep and thought I'd stop by. And I'm just like, oh no, bad things are going to, oh no, and I really took a lot of it as just being like some direction he was given and maybe blocking for the scenes, but it came across kind of creepy. But I'm not counting that against him in any way. It just bears stating.
So I had a thought about Dukat here. Do you remember, Jeff, somewhere in the middle of season 2, season 3, I don't remember how far back, I kind of unloaded this new theory about the whole Deep Space Nine versus Babylon 5 thing.
I think so, right? The East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That
Okay.
it wasn't so much that they were the Deep Space Nine was ripping off Babylon 5. And one of the things that people always point to is the name Dukat, because you've got the really bad guy over in Deep Space Nine called Dukat, and you've got this guy here called Dukat. But what I've said is they're not ripping off. They're almost in like a pissing match. They're in a battle, right? So I 100% in my head canon see this. They have the JMS thing, that they have the show Bible and stuff. They're developing a new show for a space station, and the Star Trek guys, the Paramount guys, they want to be the only space station show in town.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, okay, well, we're going to have this big bad guy. And someone's like, you know what? Their holy religious leader over there was called Dukat. I'm going to give them that name and make him the bad guy. And it's kind of like what they did with the name Lita. Oh, really? Lita's going to be one of your people? We're going to make her the prostitute over here. You know, and they're having their little, not some Deep Space franchise, you're about to go where everyone's gone before. Like there's some of those backs and forths,
yeah.
back and forths. But I think this, we can't have an episode that features Dukat without discussing the Dukat thing.
Yeah.
So forgive me if I've gone over on my references, but
I don't think it's a reference. I think this is
the show.
This is more meta than a reference.
Yeah. But I really wonder, and I would think, because what we saw in Dukat out of this episode is in no way, shape, or form anything like the Dukat in the other series.
Yeah, not even a smidge.
So the only way that makes sense is if we're going to rip off the name just to sort of noodle you a little bit,
right?
But that's a hard thing to get past when you start talking about whether or not one did rip off the other. I don't think it ripped them off.
You have to look a layer deeper at least to be like, oh, okay,
I would buy it was on purpose to just rip off their whole show. That's not a point in the favor of ripping off. So,
well, part of it too is that this Dukat, not only is he great and he's wise and he does these things, but he's a good politician.
Yeah,
as well. I loved when he brought Delenn in front of the council and asked her, hey, how should we handle these humans? He talked about the worker caste, and they were afraid that this was going to cost him jobs and the need to find artifacts and things like that. The warrior caste here is worried that we're going to have to crush these people, and the religious caste are worried that we're going to have new ideas coming in. He was able to spell out that the resistance to contact with humans was a fear of loss. Everyone was afraid of losing someone or something. So instead of going and engaging, let's just sit back and let the Centauri deal with them or whatever. Like this might cost us things. I thought that was very insightful.
That's something that could speak to governments today. And I'm not pointing to anything specific in our world today, just in general. If you try to guard and protect what you have versus actually reaching out and making the right next step, what that's going to do is lead you into a society of what Minbar actually has become.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, the more we find out about the Minbari civilization, the less and less I like.
Agreed.
The less and less I really that I have any respect for them. I loved what Veer was able to go do when he was the ambassador. He seemed like he come back a much cooler kid. But we heard about it with Drawl when we first met Drawl. Minbar is not what Minbar used to be anymore. They are a people who are xenophobic to the nth degree. They are a people who spout certain beliefs, but when it comes to the rubber meeting the road, those beliefs don't really matter, and to even the clan leader guy, his whole thing at the end of like, oh, well, here's this thing from old that we could do. Like, dude, you could have offered that at the very beginning,
way back,
and let your girl go. That would have been just fine. But no, you were concerned about how things look. And I want to have a conversation about with this offer that he made and Delenn accepting it, because it might have been the bad thing that I thought about Delenn in this particular episode. So we got the other side of the King Arthur story.
Yeah. And I think too, to even like piggyback on your thought you just had there about governments and things like that, we got the other side of the Avalon story. But what we saw, we got a little more in depth into like the whole open your gun ports thing, and how like that's a warrior cast thing of, hey, here's what you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Here you go. In fact, it goes back to the salute, where the salute comes from, showing I have nothing in my hand. The handshake that used to be grabbing each other's forearms.
Wasn't it like raising the visor on your knight helmet? Isn't that what?
Yep, here I am, and I have nothing in my hand.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not here to hide or anything. Yeah.
The handshake that would show I have nothing hiding, in my sleeves or anything. This is very much that thing. What I felt, though, was like they're in the moment, and Dukat and everyone's like, what are you doing? Close your gun ports, for God's sake. But they wouldn't, because of the cultural hubris that the Minbari have. This is our culture. It is right to do this, even when we're extending to meet another culture. So we can look at what we'll look at here with Delenn's vote later. We can look at what we saw in the Avalon episode of them giving the order to fire, and we can point a lot of blame. But ultimately, I think I'm dropping this on the warrior cast and cultural hubris of, this is how we're going to do things, even in the face of it being the wrong thing.
Well, at some point, somebody needed to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you've got the warrior casters out there doing whatever the blippity blip that they want to do, when we've got these guys that are just showing up. Like, we're like, nobody's saying, hey, here's some new people. Go get the ambassador, get our military.
What, don't they have a first contact protocol? For God's sake, like, they should have a textbook on this.
Have they never encountered this before when meeting first contact with a new species?
Imagine what we know of the Centauri, right? Who look for any opportunity. It's a drop of anything to go to war, and you're going to come at them with your gun ports open? Come on.
Do the Vorlons come at you with gun ports open? Like, where have you seen this? You don't do this and say, hey, this is how we just do it. Like, you're right. There needed to be some sort of a protocol. You got to be smarter than that, mm-hmm. and not just put your own stuff on everyone else as if it's the right way of doing it. By the way, that sounds like a very interesting message that we may or may not talk about later, or you may or may not talk about later, Jeff.
Did you see the Soul Hunters?
We saw the Soul Hunters, and I'm trying to remember, Jeff, because it's been a minute. Didn't the Soul Hunter wasn't one of the souls he had the soul of Dukat?
No. He turned into Murder Soul Hunter because he didn't get Dukat.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he explained there was I forget, but they were like the Minbari stopped them from getting to Dukat, and that drove him to become Murder Soul Hunter.
Gotcha. Yeah. So neat shout out to the Soul Hunters. They did make a reappearance, sort of. We saw their ships anyway, the three of them.
Well, that's the thing too, back to the gunport thing, because that's what got Dukat, when Delenn's like, Soul Hunters, and he's like, shut the gun port.
Somebody's about to die.
Uh-huh. And they're like, no, this is what we do, so we're just gonna do it.
Don't talk. I say that all the time to my wife. I love my wife. I've talked about her a lot here today. I've realized if we're ever like walking down the street and something is falling out of a window, like what I can't say to my wife is duck or get out of the way. Because she'll be like, well, why should I duck? Why should I get out of the way? Really? What's going on that I need to get out of the way? What's happening? What are you seeing? And I'm like, no, get out of, like, you're going to die. Stop. And because you're going to die. Yeah. I need to come up with some other word that gets her out of the way.
Have the opposite of a safe word.
Right.
Like a true danger word.
Because she'd be like, what? Why? What's going on? By the way, my kids are the same way. So she meets Dukat. She winds up on the Great Council. Triluminary glows.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I didn't think that that Triluminary looked a lot more fragile than the one that we.
It looked like a high school shop project is what it looked like.
Yeah. Is that what the ones looked like from season 1 that she stuck on the top of the deal and became a thing?
I don't remember.
Okay. And the Triluminary came from Epsilon 3?
Yeah. Or no, they were gifts from Valen.
Right. But I mean, okay, so this is the circular thing. Where did the Triluminaries actually come from?
My guess, right, is I think Zathras still plays a massive role in everything in the mythology. Yeah. I still think he went and created Epsilon 3. I think he created the Triluminaries. From what I understood, their purpose was to sense Sinclair's DNA.
The one.
So like, the whole point is like, are you a child of Valen, essentially?
And so let's talk about Delenn and her call to go to war, because I still have another conversation I want to have about Delenn in just a moment.
Okay.
In the middle of her grief, she says, no mercy, kill them all. Right. And then she comes back and says, actually, that was really stupid. And the dude's like, too late. We're in it now.
We are driven mad. And this is a holy war now.
Yeah. And this is the atonement. This is the show reference, is Delenn has to atone somehow for her vote that they would have allowed her to change. Are you changing her to vote? Can I? If I do, does it stop everything? No. Okay. Well, then I'm not changing my vote. Like,
yeah. What's the point?
You asked me in a really bad moment. Although when you're that kind of a leader, you have to be able to be.
So that's my thing is like, and this isn't a Babylon 5 thing. This is a TV and movies thing where we take these people who are in. Now, do not hear me say every person who's a leader at this level is beyond reproach and makes these things. But generally speaking, you get to that level, you're in a position where you can make these decisions under pressure. You know, I think about that movie from like the 90s, Dave.
Yeah.
He was a impersonator for the president. President had a heart attack. They didn't want stuff to go wild, so they put him in place. And he ends up like in a war room and has to make some decisions. And he's like, oh my God. Yeah, because you've never made decisions like that. You become president. You become a member of the Great Council because you've made decisions that have led up to a point where you're ready to do this. I have a real problem with her making such an emotional response. This is an enlightened race, supposedly. This is a leader. This is one of the 9 who's doing this. This is TV drama saying, oh my gosh, she was so emotionally impacted by this. She said this. I don't buy that. I don't buy it. I think it undercuts the leadership of Delenn, which I have some more thoughts on here in a little while. And it undercuts just the Minbari as a
she
whole.
had literally been named a leader 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah, but you know what? That's not a switch that's flipped. Like that's a point that she got to.
Yeah.
And the minute you're sworn in, you're expected to perform. Like you got to do it.
That is true.
And I have a real problem with the concept of deciding vote. You know, so we vote in, like here we vote in public, aye, nay, you know, whatever. Here apparently they do as well. And so there is a deciding vote. But you know what? It's not your fault. You, Delenn, don't own this problem. A whole bunch of other people voted to do it as well. Why does it have to land on you?
Well, because hers was the last one. I mean,
but she should vote her vote, whether it shouldn't be my vote decides everything. It should be I'm voting for war or I'm not voting for war. It's 5-4, and the order it was taken in
does not matter, but it does. And so this is a sports thing. I've seen this. I can't tell you how many times this year, Jeff, in football. Okay. You get all the way down to the end of the game and it's that one play.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the referee would have called that passing interference play differently, or if the kick would have gone through the uprights, but it didn't, or if, you know, whatever. And so now the kicker lost the game or the referee lost the game. You go, no, they didn't, because the real smart person goes, no, they didn't. You should not have been in that position in the first place.
Yeah, there were 3.9 quarters that happened before that.
And it was an amalgam of everything that had happened up to that point. So no, you cannot just blame the thing, you know, the one thing that happened. I agree with you on that. But the bottom line is that kicker is paid millions of dollars, sometimes it's kickers, sometimes, to be under pressure and make that kick, because that pressure is different here than it is in quarter 1 and quarter 2 and even quarter 3.
Or in the playoffs versus regular season.
Exactly.
Or what?
Exactly. Yeah. So Delenn being under that pressure of being the deciding vote, didn't do her thing, what she should have done, and she cracked, and it was a mistake, and she knew it was a mistake really quickly after, but she couldn't change it. And she's carried that as guilt because because Jeff, I think everything you're saying is 100% right. She should have been stronger. She should have not made the emotional decision that she did, but she did. And when it counted, she was the one that tipped it over.
And I can hear people already. I can hear she lost the greatest of all Minbari, her mentor. She was in an emotional state. How can you expect someone? Here's the thing.
I'm sorry. Do you think she looks at Dukat the way that Lanier looks at her?
I do.
Like she was devoted to him. She had a thing for him. She loved him, but
I don't think it's a love thing. I think it's more of a mentor thing. I don't know.
See, I think Lanier totally has a thing for Delenn.
Oh yeah, he said it. He has said it as much.
But that's what I'm saying. Did Delenn do that same thing with Dukat? She totally has a thing for Dukat, even though she could never actually be with him for one reason or another that we aren't privy to that information just yet.
Maybe. But I think this is the thing. We're living in this weird age that is exciting in some ways and difficult in others because it's a transition time where, 4 years ago, emotional intelligence meant bupkis. Who cared about your empathy? You're a leader. It's not about compassion. It's about results. Make these things happen. We're not there anymore. And that's a very good thing. Emotional intelligence. When I hire other managers, I have assessments and questions and exercises I have to do to measure someone's emotional intelligence because that's what matters. But the thing is, when the boulders are falling down on the freeway and there's gunfire coming across the way and traffic's crazy, do you want a person driving the bus whose self-regulation, part of their emotional intelligence, is next to zero, but they're so comfortable being vulnerable and expressing themselves? Like, there has to be a balance. A truly emotionally intelligent person has self-awareness, is comfortable expressing their emotions, but also has the regulation to behave and operate in the moment they're in. Do you want Delenn driving the bus? No.
Not then. Which brings me to what I want to talk about with Delenn, because I think it actually sets up this story arc, this journey that Delenn goes through in this episode that we have seen for the last 3.5 seasons. But before we get there, I have 2 notes. Normally, Jeff, I would just skip these notes and I would let them go. But I think they're crucial points that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about. Neither one of us have brought them up. Both of them have to do with Sinclair. One, I just want to point this out. So what we have learned in this episode is Delenn is a great whatever granddaughter of Sinclair. Go back and watch season 1 thinking hey,
through that. Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So there's that. But they said this line, Valen's death. Okay. I'm going to say Sinclair. His death was a mystery and his body was never found.
Yeah.
So what happened? And please, for the love of all that's good and holy out there, don't actually tell me what happened, folks. I want to find out what happened. Please, for the love of all that's good and holy, let this not be one of those things that doesn't get wrapped up, that just gets left behind.
Do you want to know what I think happens? Let me ask this. Do you have a theory about what's going to happen?
I have a bunch of what ifs, but no actual, this is in my head what happened. He went off to some other planet or something, had a bunch of kids that died and buried. They just never told us. Or he came back to the future and here's the thing. I don't know that we see Michael O'Hare again. I feel like what we saw in War Without End was that, and him going back to be Valen was the culmination of Michael O'Hare's storyline. Although it brought him back and he shows up again.
I have a feeling that we've been talking about it for a while. We thought the Warrior cast was going to align with the Shadows, but we've been seeding pretty much ever since Voice in the Wilderness, when we met Drawl, kind of talking about and leading towards this collapse of Minbari society. And I think we're seeing some of that here. And I think it's going to collapse. I think it's going to get ugly. That's going to be part of season 4. And I think Valen is going to come back. He's going to time travel back up and be like, no, stop. I am Valen. And these are the things. And he's going to bring all of Valen's children together. Because I did the math. That's not true. I didn't do math. I did a DuckDuckGo search. And I was like, how many of Valen's children are there? Like, if it's been 1,000 years? Yeah.
She said too many to count. Basically everyone.
So according to DuckDuckGo and Google, 1,000 years is about 40 generations. In human time, they didn't have Minbari time figured out there, so I don't know if that's more or less. So that's generally between 8 and 12 million people. So I don't know how many Minbari there are, but like today there's almost 8 billion people on Earth. So let's say there are 15 billion Minbari and 12 million of them are children of Valen. That's one big city or one big state or whatever. Like, so that's a good chunk of people.
I mean, that could be a small country for sure.
Yeah.
Like a whole small country for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see, but I thought that was pretty fascinating. They made a point of saying his body was never found.
Now that reminds me of the Jews. It's one particular special group of people that are a rather small country, but certainly are their own thing out there. And I say that with all love and respect, not with any sort of weird stuff.
Well, they're the chosen, they're considered the chosen people. Why wouldn't Valen's children be the chosen people?
Yeah. It has that feel to it, right?
Oh my God. And maybe it really is that, right? Because what we saw from Dude at the end is he was disgusted with the Valen stuff. In fact, when they were sitting there talking about it, they just said, we know that Valen was Sinclair right in front of Dude.
Yeah.
So do they know that? And so does that mean that now that the children of Valen are going to start having some level of precedence, are we going to start seeing an exodus occur? And we're going to see, we saw so much of Catholicism in the third season. Are we going to see like that salvation story of of Judaism that leads forward into, are we going to see that in season 4 through the Minbari? Oh, that's exciting.
I don't know. Well, so with that, I would like to see some changes with the Minbari Society, but I do want to talk about Delenn.
Yeah, let's talk about Delenn.
I loved her story in this one. Delenn, ever since we met her, but especially since doing the whole thing where she went into the chrysalis, has always been a bit unsure of herself. She usually presents this sort of mask of assurance when she's in front of other people. But we, the viewer, have also constantly seen her doubt when they talk about it. Like, well, how do you know you were the one who was supposed to do this? I just know in my heart. You know what I mean? Like,
until she gets in front of the council, and then, like you said, then she's all bravado. She's breaking the staff.
Yeah, like she's it's almost this fake it till you make it kind of an attitude with Delenn, which by the way I respect, and sometimes you really just have to have it. But in her core of who she is, there always has just sort of seemed to be this bit of unsurety, and especially just this insecurity of now being a human and having to deal with hair and relationship stuff and all that. Now, in this episode, talking about fake it till you make it, she made it. She comes face to face in this episode with her most vulnerable and real self and emerges from it having truly become the powerhouse that she has, for a lack of a better word, been pretending to be this whole time. That Delenn at the very end of the show where she's laying down and she thinks of something, all of a sudden she wakes up, she's like, I'm going back to this dreaming. And she grabs Lanier and she goes and they grab the drink and the dude's like, no, you can't do it. And she's like, screw you. I'm doing it anyway. Here, guzzle this too. You come with me. And she turns in to Delenn, but she has the strength of Dukat. You know how, like, think about Dukat and the way he was walking through that Grey Council chambers with his shoulders up and back, but he's still relaxed and he knows all the power that he has. And he wields it in a smart and wise way. And Delenn's walking in, not unsure of herself, not timid, not faking it till she makes it. She now knows, especially by the end of this, who she is. And we've had this conversation lots over the course of the show. She knows she's a child of Valen. She knows that she was the one to be the triluminary person. She knows she is the one who is, as a part of this triumvirate between her and Sheridan and Sinclair. We see why Dukat was so respected throughout the course of this episode. He was almost anti-Minbari. Yeah. The most real Minbari that we've ever met. Minbari culture, we've kind of touched on this. The rest of the Minbari came out of this episode looking very, very weak to me. Mm-hmm. Almost the entire planet seems to be wrapped up in that one guy whose name we never got, who's like the leader of the clan. And by the end, when Delenn steps up to him, his voice is shaking and he's squirming because here is Delenn in this very Dukat-esque, I am here. And no, I'm not fully Minbar anyway. And so this is how this is going to go down. And he's like, well, we have this old tradition that maybe you'll accept that. Like, and all he's doing is he is clinging to the last vestiges of what is familiar and comfortable, even though he knows that everything is based on a lie. Mm-hmm. So I loved this new Delenn. I want to see Delenn walk forth in power and confidence of knowing who she really is. Yeah. And that she is that person that is supposed to be her. Also, I'm incredibly disappointed with her.
Before you get into the disappointment, I want to circle back.
Sure.
Because you asked me earlier if Dukat made the right choice in not forcing the hand of the council to go meet and make contact with the humans. And I said he understood that they had to make that decision for themselves, have their own mistakes, and learn from them. Delenn made a huge mistake in the moment, right? When she voted to attack and screamed no mercy. This is where she learned. This is Dukat's leadership paying off a decade and some odd change later, that she learned, and she will be better and stronger because she made that mistake.
Right.
If she had shown up on the Grey Council and everything was hunky-dory and cool and she voted on propositions and whatever, she would never become the leader and the potential that she's about to most likely become now that, like you said, now that she knows who she is.
The fact that she seemed to accept this offer at the end in order to maintain the secret, or rather even allowing the secret to stay, because it would destabilize everything. It would make everything weird and uncomfortable. I would accept this more if she was like, hey, listen, if this were all to come out right now, it would literally destroy Minbari culture. That it's going to come out, but the time is not right. Mm-hmm. I could accept that. It really seemed to me this was more self-service. Hey, so this is where it is, and I'm going to go marry my dude, and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, that's what you want to tell people? Fine. I don't care. I'm still going to go marry my dude. That's the way it came off to me. And I was really disappointed with that because, like I said earlier, since we first met Drawl, we have heard that Minbar is not really Minbari anymore. And we've been continually over the course of the show been made to see the cracks in the mask that is Minbar. And at this point, I don't know, and I kind of wanted us to, but I don't know that we're actually going to get the story. Here it is, Jeff, for all our Red Sector folks out there. The redemption of Minbar.
Ooh.
For Minbar to actually become what she is supposed to be. Not just this, hey, here's all our values and all our virtues, but actually we're just scared little people grasping at power, and we're xenophobic, and we're this. Instead of actually becoming this awesomeness, they're turning more inward, and Delenn's just going to let that happen? I mean, what does that say about a culture that is so dedicated to keeping up a charade that is clearly crumbling when you see what you could be otherwise in the person of Dukat? Why wouldn't you want to be that anyway, right? Seems incredibly prescient for today. And I'm reminded, Jeff, can I borrow one?
Do I have one? Yeah, I think I have one.
Can I borrow one?
So, yeah.
Can I borrow it for you? Okay. I am reminded of what Ezri Dax said to Worf in the final season of Deep Space Nine when he was talking to her about everything. And she looked at him at one point and she's like, look, maybe the Klingon civilization needs to die. Maybe it doesn't deserve to continue. If you have to keep a secret of your family's history and keep the secret of Duras in order to maintain your culture, maybe that culture doesn't deserve to continue. And I'm reminded of that here, that if Delenn has to keep the secret of the children of Valen and the actual truth of the nature of the people of Minbar, if she has to keep that a secret in order to preserve the culture, maybe that culture doesn't deserve to be preserved.
Yeah. Or it desperately needs to be changed. And I think I'm not going to go too big into it just because I have it in my closing thoughts, but this moment was her failure.
Again.
You can say that her failure was voting to go to war. You can say that. But I think that was a step on the path for her to this moment of, hey, Delenn, what's truly important to you? The Minbari people, the galaxy, civilization, for lack of a better term, humanity, or you getting it on with Sheridan? Like, what is truly important to you? And my takeaway at the end of this episode, getting it on with Sheridan is priority number one.
That being said, I will go back and reiterate what I said earlier. I love the journey that Delenn took to become and finally, not become, because she's always been this, to finally accept who she is and come in tune with it and step into that person that she is. I only hope that we come back and circle around to this. Jeff, my suspicion is that this was written the way it was written because JMS is wanting something else, and this isn't the focus. And you and I are just overanalyzing this one little part. I suspect that is the case. However, I do think there is something more that it's worthy of a discussion, and maybe gets covered in a movie or something ancillarily. I don't know. It would be, maybe that's what Crusade is about.
Yeah, or maybe it's what the rest of season 4 is about. I think we have a lot of Minbari story left for us. And to me, what happens in their society and the role Delenn chooses to play is ultimately what I'm going to judge this episode on.
Well, Jeff, you mentioned it just a second ago, but I think we have reached that spot. And I am actually eager to hear, as long as this episode is getting, I did not think that we would go as in deep into this episode as we have.
Oh, really? I knew we were going to go. This is so much.
Rather quicker show, but I'm eager to hear the Star Trek messages that you have found through the course of this episode and what you've pulled out. We have reached that spot. We were searching for those Star Trek-like messages. Jeff, you are going to rate this episode, discuss those, and rate this on a scale of 0 to 5 Delta Furies, talking about the Star Trek messages you found, but how did they do them in a uniquely Babylon 5 way?
I'm giving this 4 Delta Furies. I'll just start with that. It had a lot of incredible stuff on it, and it had one big major failing we've talked about a little bit. But the theme that we've been driving through a lot of this whole season has been the themes of power and authority. Like what power costs, how it should be used. And Dukat had such an amazing quote that I loved so much and lines up with so much of what we've been hearing G'Kar say all season long. But Dukat said, authority should never be used as a club. Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that, right? He let the council fail. He let Delenn fail. And through this, the council didn't learn. They got broken up. But Delenn learned. Like, she failed and she has learned. It took her 15 years some odd, but she has learned from her failure. That's leadership, right? Long-term leadership from Dukat. He had another great moment as well when Delenn was like, just tell him to make contact with the humans. Like, you know what it is. And he said, when something is foolish, tell them it's foolish. But the truth is where it should be. And I think that's another great role that a leader can play. It's not your role to make people do the right thing. It's your role to provide the information, tell people when they're being stupid, but let them make their own decision. The meat of this episode, ultimately, though, was that Delenn made a rash, emotionally charged decision that had galactic consequences. Her vote and the votes of others led to the brutal war. It almost wiped humanity off of the map. I'm going to do a little self-plug here, but in the 73rd episode of the Starfleet Leadership Academy, my Star Trek podcast, I watched the original series and The Children Shall Lead. I did that.
That was a while ago. Wow.
Yeah. And it was a terrible Star Trek episode. One of the worst episodes of Star Trek.
It was a good episode of Starfleet Leadership Academy.
It was. Thank you. Because I got to talk about the dangers of making emotionally charged decisions.
Yep.
And that emotions play a role. Emotions are critical. They're so important. We talked about emotional intelligence earlier, but in this episode, Babylon 5 took that Star Trek theme of making an emotionally charged decision, wrapped it up in a whole lot of Babylon 5 and handed it right to us. Because in a way, even though it took her nearly 2 decades to grow and learn from it, she did grow. She did learn from it. And I have to believe the galaxy will benefit from that. But she also learned that love does prevail, right? Like, she put her love for Sheridan to the test, and it turns out she actually really does love him. And the question she asked, is love not enough? Well, I think this shows us that it is enough, but you have to have full knowledge and acceptance of why you love and why that love is important. It's not just, I love her, so I'm going to do this. So I love her for these reasons, and I've tested them and tried them, and I think that's why it's important. Had she stood up for the children of Valen, for the changes necessary in Minbari society at the end, this would have been a 5 Delta Fury episode, but she didn't. She just wanted to get the nasty on with Sheridan and let her clan be cool with that, and then she got that. So I'm going to knock it a Delta Fury for the way this ended, and I'm going to give this one 4.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm with you in all of that. I had this other note, if I just may add on. I'm not advocating for you to change your thing. It said if all this information came out, the race would be destroyed, or the purity of the race would be destroyed. It's like, dude, your race isn't pure anyway.
Yeah, I love that when she's like, it's 1,000 years. We have the paperwork right here that tells you we haven't been pure.
Because we know that. Like,
we've had a lot of themes we've been talking about in this whole episode. It's part of why we've gone as long as we have. There's so many themes.
But it feels so appropriate to pick a political, societal issue today, and that probably holds up. Yeah, just pick, like, I'm not even thinking of one specifically, just in general. Like,
well, pick it today, pick it 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago. It all applies.
Yeah.
This is for the purity of our people. This is for our, a truly Roman this, a truly American this, a truly Ugandan this, whatever. Yeah, there's no such thing. There's just no such thing.
Right.
Well, Brent, we're creating the absolute 100% completely accurate and definitive ranking of the 4th season of Babylon 5. And you get to rank this one. Our current top 5 are Into the Fire, The Long Night, Whatever Happened to Mr. Garibaldi, The Summoning, and The Hour of the Wolf. Brent, where do you put Atonement?
This one's actually really easy. Despite my objections to Delenn's choice at the end, Jeff, I'm going to choose to let that go and not let that taint this episode for me. And I'm not going to knock Delenn on that for a whole lot of reasons, because the core of this episode was really about discovering Ducat, discovering who Delenn was, getting her to this new level, and actually clearing the way for her and Sheridan to actually get married. And that's where the show, I think, is going to focus. And I'm just going to chalk that up to bad writing.
Okay.
Less a bad choice by Delenn. Sorry, JMS. The way we got Delenn back to go to Sheridan to just sort of like write it off and make everything even, that there's just some problems with that actually, I know you can't use it now because then you'd have to pay me and Jeff for it all, but that would be a really interesting idea to plumb.
Yeah.
That being said, I really enjoyed this episode.
It's a great episode.
This really was a good episode. So this is definitely cracking the top 5. In fact, I think this is cracking the top 3, and this is our new number 3. I did like this better than Whatever Happened to Mr. Garibaldi and The Summoning and The Hour of the Wolf. Was it better than Long Night Into the Fire? No. That's a Jeff, if those are the top 2 episodes of the season, I'm not mad. But this is that new number 3 for me.
I completely agree. In fact, if it came in anywhere except 3 or 4, I would have fought you. Like, I would have
right.
I would have shelled my own John Kreese and screamed no mercy.
Right.
Well, that's it for Atonement. Next week, we're watching Racing Mars for the first time. Never seen these episodes before. This is our fun prediction game where I drop the title of the episode and we guess what it's going to be about. So Brent, you go first. What do you think Racing Mars is going to be about?
Okay, well, we saw at the end of this episode Marcus and Franklin heading off towards Mars, and they're going to meet with the Resistance. So we got to pick up that storyline. I'm going to say that something happens while they meet the Resistance and some stuff goes down. I also want to go back to Garibaldi because the word Mars triggers something. Garibaldi has a bit of Mars history in his own past, right?
He does.
Okay, so let's think about where Garibaldi is. And they reiterated it for us in this episode with Zach and all that sort of stuff. Garibaldi has resigned his command. He gave a really bad interview about Sheridan, and Sheridan's got to be pissed off about it. He didn't say much about it in this episode, but Sheridan's not feeling good. So I think that while Marcus and Franklin go to Mars and they get into some trouble there, back on the station, Sheridan and Garibaldi are going to have it out about that interview.
Okay.
But what I think is going to happen is it's because of that, Garibaldi is going to leave the station and return to Mars, where like his old girlfriend was, and I don't know what family he and Sinclair have left over there. Whatever he does, he's going to return to Mars. But what's going to happen is he's going to show up on Mars like right as some bad stuff was getting ready to happen with Franklin and Marcus, and hero Garibaldi is going to come back and he's going to swoop in and sort of save them. And maybe we get those 3 off on an adventure in Mars, because Garibaldi's still got to be a good guy. I mean, whatever's happened to him in his brain is something we've got to figure out. But like, I think at its fundamental core, Garibaldi is still good.
We're going to get another one of those early 90s like music video message wavy things for him, but it's just going to over and over say, get your ass to Mars, get your ass to Mars, get your ass to Mars.
Only if he does the reverse Vulcan salute thing.
Yeah, into
open up the dome.
Hey, I think this one's going to have a little Garibaldi to it as well. You're going to recognize this refrain as we're going to learn more about his programming of some kind. I don't think he's necessarily, I don't think Garibaldi's going to be a big part of this episode. I think there's going to be two big parts. One is, I think we're going to get Franklin and Marcus, right? It's going to be total odd couple shenanigans, them on the road, jokes. It's going to be played for laughs. I think
it's a road trip episode.
I think it is. I think it ends with them getting to Mars. Like, I don't think that the story's on Mars. I think the story's going to be on a couple liners and ships and just like there's going to be stuff that happens and some relationship building, but I think there's going to be a lot that's going to be played for laughs. And I think the serious nature of this episode, though, is going to happen on the side. And I think we're going to get back down to the Regent Emperor on Centauri and the Guardian command guy, the keeper, whatever thing that's on him. And we're going to start getting a little bit into the Centauri.
We haven't really seen a whole lot of Londo since he got back on the station, have we?
Very little. We saw the bit on the newscast, right? And that was about it. We'll find out here next week. Thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it so much. Please subscribe, rate, review, and please share. Share either the YouTube video or the podcast with someone who loves Babylon 5 or that you're trying to help them fall in love with Babylon 5. Brent, until next time.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah, what's up?
I have a question.
Yeah, shoot.
So we didn't bring this up earlier, but I have to ask. What exactly does the inside of a Martian pleasure dome on a Sunday morning smell like?
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, in Valen's name, man. In Valen's name.
I mean, we're not some deep space franchise. This station is about something.
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert, which I know is a tautology. My xenoscience studies range from urban to agrarian. I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. And then his eyes blink.
Of course, you know that one better than you do the actual lyrics